A petition against the regulation of pornography posted by an anonymous netizen received 1 million signatures within a week, and surpassed 1.2 million within 10 days. After receiving the petition's consent for 30 days, wouldn't it have surpassed 2 million at this rate? When this happened, the media also reported this fact as major news at once. I was shocked to see the number of consents rising in real time. What is this? Why is porn appearing in regulatory reform? You said it was natural. You don't know? Pornography is the industry that needs to be deregulated first. At what time does it make sense that porn is still illegal? It is, though. In the case of prostitution, some countries allow it and some don't. But in the case of porn, everyone allows it. In fact, Korea is the only developed country where pornography is illegal. Although Korea generally follows global standards when it comes to pornography, it boasts strong regulations that are not inferior to those of Islamic countries. Ellie asked as if she didn't understand. I've been wondering for a long time, why is porn illegal only in Korea? There is nothing wrong with adults enjoying adult content. If there is no problem in enjoying it, there is no problem in making it. Well, you're going to be discussing porn with your girlfriend in front of your friends. Strictly speaking, adult content itself is not illegal. Erotic movies are legal. However, pornography with actual sex is illegal. First of all, the biggest reason is the Confucian culture. In the process of rapid industrialization, there must be some that have not been properly discussed. As far as porn is concerned, both liberals and conservatives are opposed. In addition, the conservative tendencies of the older generation, women's rights and youth education issues overlapped and made it more complicated. Taejayu said. The strange thing is that it's forbidden by law, but everyone is watching. Pornography has never been legal in Korea. But there has never been a time when there was no pornography. In the days when there was no internet, magazines, videotapes, and CDs were secretly traded in places like Yongsan and Cheonggyecheon back alleys. And after the internet was opened, foreign pornography began pouring out through the network in earnest. Even now, you can easily find porn with just 1 or 2 clicks and a search. Then can we not allow it now? It is common for incumbents who will be harmed if the regulations are removed, strongly oppose, but in the case of pornography, there are no incumbents who can oppose it. The erotic film industry will suffer, but it has already been wiped out due to illegal pornography. At this point, it is time to start a social discussion for legalization. In Korea, talk about sex is very sensitive. No matter how widely spread out in the shade, it is not easy to bring it to the light. Is it the face of adults? Isn't Korea pretty open-minded among Asian countries? It may look like that, but it's surprisingly conservative. Taeyong nodded his head. Is not it? It is a country where it is difficult for young people to buy condoms. Ellie was surprised at that. Really? Contraceptive methods are taught at school. This is kind of funny. Since condoms are medical supplies, even teenagers can purchase them at any pharmacy or convenience store. However, protruding or functional condoms are designated as adult products and are prohibited from being sold to adolescents. If sold, imprisonment for up to 1 year or a fine of not more than 5 million won can be imposed. Why? It's to prevent young people from feeling pleasure. At my words, Ellie burst into laughter. Is there such a joke in Korea? Taekyu and I shook our heads at the same time. It's not a joke, it's real. Ellie said confused. No, if you're not going to enjoy pleasure, why would you do it? What? It is. I also don't understand what this means. To be precise, it was announced by the Youth Protection Committee, and after that, the Youth Protection Committee belonged to the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. And the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family has maintained this regulation for over 20 years. It is difficult to discuss gender issues in Korea to the extent that such a nonsensical rule cannot be changed. Needless to say, if it was porn, it is illegal under the law, but such an ambiguous situation that everyone sees has continued until now, and it was also an issue that would someday be publicly discussed. I didn't know it would turn out like this all of a sudden. Whether legal or illegal, the point is that porn is a huge industry. The porn industry is constantly growing. It didn't even matter when the economy was in recession or boom. Except for Korea, almost all countries are developing the porn industry, and the US, UK, Japan and France have already established themselves as a huge industry. The porn market has grown as it grows and will never shrink. In fact, it showed explosive growth by combining with new technologies. With the development of technology, the consumption method of pornography continues to change. In the early days it was mainly screened at adult cinemas, but later with the spread of color TVs and video players, porn accelerated the spread. It was changed to watching at home. After the development of the internet, the medium has changed from TV to computer. Again, porn has accelerated the spread, and now mobile is the trend. Watching is also changing from downloading to streaming. As it is said that porn is the first field where all new technologies are used, the wind of the fourth industrial revolution has also swept through the porn industry. And Faceit has been reborn as the undisputed strongest player in the porn industry by actively introducing these new technologies. Recommendation algorithm using big data, 4K video production, VR porn, AL and sex doll combination, etc. The 5G era to be opened in the future is also a good opportunity for the porn industry to take off. Faceit was also in the midst of research on virtual sex using 5G networks. The fourth industrial revolution will reduce manufacturing jobs. However, in the field of content it was a different story. The number of jobs required for server and website management and production increased, and each company continued to increase employment. I remember when I invested in Faceit. That was my first startup investment. Who would have thought that the first company they invested in would do so well? At my words, Ellie asked as if she had suddenly remembered something. Oh right. So who was your favorite actor back then? Are you learning? A porn star. Ah. When I panicked, Ellie smiled. Now is the time to be honest. Come on, let's talk. I want to protect the privacy of her retired. When the petition for regulatory reform exceeds 200,000 signatures, the person in charge of the relevant department must respond. As the media's attention was focused, U.S. Secretary of Gender Equality and Family Shin Jin-shin stepped forward and made her position clear. The Ministry of Gender Equality and Family has been working to eradicate sexual commodification of women and pornography. However, even now many women are suffering from illegal filming and revenge porn, and they are even making extreme choices. Women are not objects of pleasure and consumption. To protect women's human rights and establish a healthy sexual culture, pornography should be banned. Netizens generally reacted as absurd. Leisure class that puts hidden cameras and pornography on the same line. I agree that illegal filming and revenge porn are serious crimes and must be eradicated. But why should normal and legally produced porn be treated the same? Secretly, you tie these two together and talk. You're asking for a law to ban sex altogether? Whoa. What do you want from a Confucian country like this? If pornography should be banned in order to protect women's human rights and establish a healthy sexual culture, are the US, UK, France, Germany, etc. that allow pornography, violating women's human rights and spreading an unhealthy sexual culture? The trap is that these countries have a higher gender equality index than Korea. Shouldn't the Minister of Recreation attend the UN Human Rights Commission to accuse countries that allow pornography? Features of Korea Leisure Department equals Korea Limited follicles. Representative Lee Jong-hae of the Liberal People's Party made an extra sip here. Pornography is absolutely illegal in Korea. However, it has not been properly regulated. I will make and propose a law that makes the crackdown and punishment of pornography more stringent than it is today. A total of 10 lawmakers participated in the bill proposal, led by women lawmakers in the party, including Representative Lee Jong-hae. 3 members of the New Politics Party were also listed here. A bipartisan collaboration to ban porn. Netizens were shocked. No, you bastards. You'd better hit my neck. No, I petitioned for the regulation to be lifted, but what is the case of making the regulation? Why are you preventing adults from viewing adult content? Haha. You are very 10-year-old. Tensonbi is not an insult at all. It means 10 legislators who have the same spirit of a scholar. That's right. From now on let's call them Sionbai. You teenagers. However, the public opinion in support of the Sionbai was not formidable. Never loosen the porn regulations. Think about it. What will our children see and learn? If pornography is allowed in a country where gender inequality is severe like Korea, it will eventually lead to the exploitation of women. Stop discrimination against women. A woman's body is not a sexual object. In the old days it was said that men and women are equal to 7 generations. But what about porn? Aren't you ashamed to see your ancestors? Families are collapsing due to pornography and society is collapsing. When porn is legalized, Korea becomes a porn heaven. Huh. Then get a dog. As the controversy surrounding the legalization of porn grew, foreign media also expressed interest. Foreigners expressed their surprise that pornography was illegal in Korea. When this incident brought Faceit attention, Toby Strong posted a post on FaceNote. Koreans love pornography. We have already secured 500,000 Korean paid subscribers. The expectation that there would be many Korean subscribers had long been expected. But this is the first time the CEO has spoken directly. His remarks surprised people. Netplay, the world's largest video streaming site, has 350,000 subscribers in Korea. But the porn site Faceit has more subscribers than that. Minus 50 million people. Why are Korean men like this? I used the internet in my boyfriend's room and there was a Faceit address. So, on that day I notified him that we were going to break up right away. I'm worried that my lover might also join. Do not worry too much. There are many men who do not watch pornography. When I asked, my husband said he had never seen pornography since he was born. As a man, I really don't understand men who see things like that. Haha, you've never seen pornography since you were born? Is that true? Authorities should strictly block access to foreign porn sites. Okay, just bypass it with a VPN. What is a VPN? When I asked my sister, who entered Sane Women's University as the chief of computer science, she said that it was the initials of video, porno, and nomo. Huh. Sometimes men say internet VPN blah 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 blah. It's really dirty. How can you use such a word casually on the internet? Shouldn't it be reported for sexual harassment? Oh Sheba, I forgot what to say. I don't know where to start. Should I point out from my older sister who attends computer science? Or should I point out that Sane Women's University doesn't have an engineering school? Please note that DNS is the initials of dirty, nopo, and sex. HTTP is hentai the porno. Then SNS is swapping no con sex? Toby Strong's FaceNote received tens of thousands of comments. The next day he posted one more post. 130,000 of those 500,000 subscribers are women. The internet has been turned upside down again. What? I didn't ask how many female subscribers there are. Minus 130,000 people? Why are Korean girls like this? I'm going crazy. Why do women join? Faceit content for women is a hit. Everyone. You know it's all lies, right? Yes. That includes the payments made by teenage boys with their mom's card. Then if a man uses a woman's card, all of them will appear as female subscribers. I thought it was kind of weird. From what I've heard, it's not the only case where a husband paid with his wife's card. If it's a Korean man, then that's enough. What kind of madman swipe his wife's card on a porn site? Haha, I'm tired of mental victory. Who has had the greatest influence on world porn history? Hugh Hefner? Larry Plant? America was a Puritan country, so it was a stoic atmosphere in the beginning. However, the two fought against the government, leading to freedom of expression and the legalization of pornography. Since then, the porn industry has grown at a tremendous rate in line with the booming period in the United States, and the two established their own kingdoms, the Playboys and Hustlers. But in the 21st century, a porn empire bigger than the two combined has emerged. Let's face it. And the largest shareholder of the company is OTK Company. Playboy's writer Neil Durden put it this way. If Jin Ho Kong hadn't made the investment at the right time, Faceit would have remained just one of those porn sites. He changed the history of porn. Faceit has risen to the top of the porn industry in just a few years since its founding. The number of paid subscribers continued to increase, and revenues also increased significantly. Faceit continued to reinvest its profits into new industries. VR porn, virtual sex, acquisition of Dancing Rabbit, production of own content, etc. Content service through partnerships with other producers is served through several other platforms besides Faceit. However, content produced by Faceit is only served through Faceit. Unlike movies and dramas, pornography requires only male and female actors and an indoor space. Because of this, many of the porn production companies were small-scale and focused only on shooting as many works as possible at a low cost. However, Faceit, which achieved economies of scale, was different. They spent a lot of money on their production and they made quality porn that they had never seen before. As a result, Faceit swept the AVN Awards, a porn awards ceremony held in the United States, also known as the Oscars for pornography. The number of paid Faceit subscribers continued to increase as their own content became very popular, but now that they have become a market leader, the growth rate has started to slow down little by little. That might be enough, but founders Toby Strong and Gerard Bacon didn't think so. We need to show more people our pornography. Right. Thousands of people are looking forward to what porn we will release next. It is also strengthening collaboration with Dancing Rabbit, an adult product company that it acquired last year, and is also producing sex dolls with Al and voices of famous actresses, but it did not lead to immediate profits. In order to continue increasing content investment, it was necessary to secure more paid subscribers. At this time, the new person on the list was Korean-American Jane Young. Originally working as an executive at Twitter, she recently moved to Faceit. There are two reasons why she moved from a global IT company to a porn company. She was intrigued by Toby and Gerard's vision, and the porn industry had grown tremendously. As Faceit's chief content officer, she told the two of them, "Isn't there a very simple way to increase subscribers? Faceit has succeeded in reaching half of the American population, why not the other half?" Here the other half were referring to women. Faceit is not without female subscribers. However, due to the nature of pornography, male subscribers were overwhelmingly. To the dubious two, Jane Young cut it off. There is no woman in the world who hates porn. It's just that she doesn't have any porn to watch. Under her leadership, Faceit started producing content for women in earnest. Investors were generally negative. It's about how many women have to watch porn to see. However, the vice president of OTK company, the largest shareholder, had a different idea. "It's a great idea. If you need more investment, we will support you, so go ahead." Jane Young has used her big data accumulated over the years to thoroughly analyze the videos viewed by female subscribers. She wrote the screenplay and selected the director and actors accordingly. Unlike the previous porno, which took off all clothes, it was carried out according to the story. She paid great attention to the sound, not only for the video but also for the female music director. As a result, the production cost has risen significantly to the extent that it is comparable to any popular drama or B-movie. Despite the concerns of those around her, Jenny Chung was confident of her success. In addition, Faceit presented content by categorizing women-oriented categories separately. There was no immediate explosive reaction. However, word of mouth began to spread little by little through SNS, and from a certain moment the number of female subscribers began to increase explosively. A new star was born. John Dickey, pseudonym, has emerged as a porn star among American middle-aged women due to his handsome face, toned body and manners on the bed. Female subscribers in their 40s and 50s flocked to watch his video. Inquiries arose about when the next video would be uploaded, and Jenny Young announced that she would produce a seasoned porn starring John Deek. Controversy surrounding pornography did not subside. On the internet, a battle ensued. If pornography becomes legal, Faceit will enter Korea. Then isn't it only profit after Kongjin? Did you say that we should reform regulations for this? I'm confused because I'm afraid that someone is not a pro-North Korean leftist. No matter how much you shout about freedom, you want indulgence in the end. Even if you don't like Kang Jin-woo, Faceit's entry into Korea is welcome. How long are you going to see it illegally? Can't you see? How can a person live without eating? TV urgently organized a related discussion. I was asked to participate as a panelist, but I declined. Now I want to stop talking about porn. Anti-porn groups gathered in front of the headquarters to protest. At first, women's groups were the main focus, but Confucian groups, religious groups and parent groups joined the group. The reason OTK company is the largest shareholder of Faceit, the world's largest pornography company, is why they have to leave the good Gwangwamun Square or City Hall Square to protest. I sighed. I will be delighted. For some reason, it doesn't seem like a single day passes quietly these days. Taeyong looked out the window. If you want to protest, don't you have to go to Faceit headquarters instead of here? America is far away. For reference, protests by American women's groups often take place in front of Faceit headquarters. Toby and Gerard don't seem to care. The president of the parents' meeting to raise children safely, Aki-on shouted with a loudspeaker. I did not come here as a Naki's president, but as a mother of a son in middle school and high school. My sons don't even know what pornography is and are just studying safely and soundly. Our children are curious. Curious heaven. But what if porn is allowed? Why don't our children who know nothing only watch pornography without studying? Porn is unhealthy and provocative. If you watch porn while studying, you will become an idiot who can't solve a single test question, you won't be able to pass the SAT, and you won't be able to go to college. Then this country will be destroyed. Taekyu looked at him and said, "Are the children not watching pornography according to her mother's beliefs?" Maybe you're watching it secretly? But you, who watched a lot of porn when you were in school, did well in Korea University. I haven't seen much. Taekyu patted my shoulder and said, "Why can't you be so honest? Let's face it. Think of Toby and Gerard. Aren't they both too honest?" The spark of controversy that started with a petition from an anonymous netizen has now moved to the National Assembly. The reason is a law that strengthens the crackdown and punishment on pornography proposed by Representative Lee Jong-hai. The prerequisites for billing are already in place. If nothing else is done, it will be brought to the plenary session and voted on. Already, netizens were trembling with anxiety and fear. This might actually pass. Needless to say how useless this bill is. However, as many groups already support the bill, it does more harm than good to oppose it. Taekyu said with his arms crossed. Rose blooms on asphalt, and there must be at least one brave man in the National Assembly. It is customary for the first opposition party to chair the judiciary. The current chairperson of the judiciary is Hong Yuiwa of the New Political Party. At a meeting held to review the bill, Representative Lee Jong-hai strongly criticized her government. She said, even though there were laws regulating pornography, such as laws prohibiting the manufacture, distribution of pornography, and the distribution of illegal information, proper crackdown and punishment were not implemented. What was the government doing while the internet became a hotbed of illegal pornography? To establish a sound sexual culture, we need to strengthen the law to eradicate illegal pornography. Representative Lee Jong-hai was the one who made the bill, but it was expected that the new political party members would be dealt with without any problems as they also participated in her proposal. However, an unexpected ambush appeared. Can I tell you something? It was a male senator. A former lawyer, he was named the 19th proportional representative of the new political party in the last general election. Unfortunately, the new political party only secured 17 seats. I thought I was going to be eliminated, but proportional representative number 7 dropped out for personal reasons, and number 15 was expelled for corruption, and he was lucky enough to enter the National Assembly in his next turn. After that, in the last general election, he ran for the Gyeonggi region and, after a close battle with the candidate of the Liberal National Party, won by a narrow margin of 0.3% and was re-elected. This was the smallest difference in votes in all constituency elections, and netizens nicknamed him Lucky Guy. What's so big about having an adult watching porn? Jira, who had never had a significant presence, was astonished by the members of the Judiciary Committee. Are the people stupid? If the government says it's going to ban and crack down on porn, wouldn't you like it? Representative Lee Jong-hai, who came to her senses, said, "So we need to strengthen the law to prevent it." Then have you ever watched porn because the punishment was weak? You're welcome. The stronger the punishment and crackdown, the more you will hide in the shadows. Sex drive, along with appetite and sleep, is a human instinct. It is the role of the state to ensure that it can be resolved legally and soundly. No matter how much I think about it, I don't know what the problem is. Representative Lee Jong-hai said in an irritated voice. Do you know how many women are harmed and suffered by illegal pornography on the internet right now? Some even take their own lives. Representative Nam Gwi calmly countered. The Leisure Department and the legislator are talking about illegal filming and revenge porn as the same thing as pornography made legally in a foreign country. Aren't these two different? Read more at wuxiax.com. What is different? Then, is an assault video that beats people the same as an action movie in which the main characters fight? Victims exist in illegal filming. However, porn production companies pay adult men and women for their appearances. Think about it, Senator. Do you think those women wanted to film porn? Most people have no choice but to take pictures because they need money. They are victims too. This was the same logic as the women's group insisted. Even if the parties consented, the consent itself could not be regarded as genuine consent as it was made in a power relationship. According to your logic, the US does not regulate pornography and is making a lot of women victims. Do you have any intention of formally protesting against President Ronald, a congressman who values women's human rights? Oh no, that's America. This is Korea. Good. Then all the women who took erotic movies and nude pictures must be victims, so why not regulate this? Are you going to punish all the bosses of the erotic movie production companies? It's not actually having sex. As Larry Flynt said, murder is illegal, but filming it will win a Pulitzer Prize. Sex is legal, but if she shoots it, she goes to jail. Which developed countries have illegal pornography? Is it such a big deal for an adult with a sexual desire to satisfy their desires through legally created videos? That is why developed countries with higher human rights standards allow pornography. The male ear member pulled out her papers. The data I have brought is a report on the global porn industry. That's 20 trillion won a year in the US alone. In developed countries other than Korea, the porn industry is growing rapidly, and employment is also increasing significantly. However, only Korea, like the Galapagos, is implementing a policy of unilateral regulation. Are you saying you want to legalize porn right now? I'm not saying that it should be completely open right now, she said. However, it is necessary to legalize it rather than unconditionally block it illegally, to bring it into the system and manage it. An environment for viewing pornography that is legally produced and distributed under government regulation must be created. It is also about promoting freedom of expression and individual freedom. Representative Lee Jong-hai continued to raise her voice. Our people just watch lewd pornography and start imagining lewd things. What do you think it is? Then what will happen to this country? So you haven't seen it yet? What? Don't be fooled into thinking that the government can even control people's sexual desire. How is this different from prohibition? Representative Lee Jong-hai, who had nothing to say, shouted. Look, Senator Song Ji-byum. The male legislator also shouted and responded. It's a male ear, not a male ear. Do you know what the people call the lawmakers who signed the bill? I call it tensionbai. Representative Lee Jong-hai jumped up with her face blushing and pointed at her. What? 10-year-old? Where is Kasari to me? You must resign. Women's groups visited the new political party headquarters in protest. Representative Nam Song-jui defended pornography in the National Assembly, demeaned women's rights and insulted female politicians. The Federation of Women's Organizations was shocked and terrified to see a member of the National Assembly representing the people uttering discriminatory and misogynistic nonsense without any guilt. We urge immediate party-level measures and countermeasures. As the protests grew, the new political party issued an apology comment. First of all, I would like to apologize to those who were hurt by Representative Nam's remarks. Our party recognizes that Representative Nam's remarks are very inappropriate and anti-human rights, and we take responsibility for it. We will initiate disciplinary procedures at the party level according to your request. However, Representative Male Gui, who was the one who actually spoke to her, did not bend her will. What the hell is wrong with my remarks? Is it misogynistic in favor of legalizing porn? In Korea, prostitution is illegal, porn is illegal, and even importing sex dolls is illegal. How is this different from not making toilets and not urinating on the street? I would rather leave the new political party than be forced to apologize and force myself to apologize. The internet is buzzing again. Anyone can see that this is the man's fault. Wrong, she was born in Korea. It was the mistake of saying the right thing, not the bullshit in the National Assembly. So what the hell are you talking about? I couldn't find it even after looking through all the videos. If you don't like it, say nothing. Haha, insulting female politicians. From now on, if Representative Lee Jong-hai speaks, be careful and listen. A real scholar has appeared to deal with the 10 scholars. How could such a person be a member of parliament? It is worth knowing the level of Korean politics. That's the president's sense. I would have thought that there would be such a great lawmaker in Korea. I sincerely apologize for swearing at the members of the National Assembly. Whether it's a general election or a presidential election, as long as it comes out, I'll take a picture. Senator Nam Song-jui will do everything for you. There's hope. Right? She said she had lived without hope. Is the new political party thinking or not? What are you going to punish me for? Why are you killing our senator? We must protect it. Men will join forces to protect it. If you discipline me, I will also leave the party. Let's leave the new politics party together. This time I left the new political party and founded Songwhidang Kaswa. It's a bit Thousands of articles about leaving the party were posted on the new political party website. The new political party leadership, who was about to start the disciplinary process, was embarrassed. If you really discipline a member of the male ear, an exodus of party members may occur. Protests from women's groups continue to pour in, and a male lawmaker is holding out that he can't apologize, and there are concerns that a large-scale party member will leave the party when she takes disciplinary action. However, she said that she should not be disciplined, and female lawmakers in the party are also objecting. The party's approval ratings were showing signs of declining in a situation where they could neither do this nor that. The only comforting thing is that the approval rating of the Liberal People's Party is declining even more. Jang Hyun-jun, the head of the House, held his head with both hands and sighed. What is this? Because Jin Hu-kong wants to reform regulations. Anyway, she has nothing to do with her after the Gangjin. The battle of words between Representative Lee Jong-hai and Representative Nam Gwi in the Judiciary Committee became a big issue. Representative Gwi, a male who had had little presence in the past, made her name known to everyone through this incident, and political donations poured in from all sides of her. A video of the Judiciary Committee's word of mouth was also uploaded to YouTube, a video site run by Gubal. Bored netizens put subtitles in English, Japanese, Spanish and Chinese below. Surprisingly, the video garnered 5 million views in 2 days. Oh, does something like that happen every time in the Korean National Assembly? Who is that woman and why is she yelling at her to resign? He was a presidential candidate in Korea. In the Korean National Assembly, if you don't like that woman, you should resign. I've seen Kang Jin-woo shout out to resign before. Right. That video was fun. I remember Ronald saying "you're fired" on a show a while ago. The Korean National Assembly has now become a laughing stock beyond Korea. In particular, the scene where Representative Lee Jong-hai blushed and pointed at her and shouted "resignation, Haziet," was very popular with foreigners. I don't know who started it first, but when someone says something they don't like, it's a kind of internet meme to fight back by posting a picture of Representative Lee Jong-hai yelling at her to resign, subtitled "You're fired." And it spread like a fad. As a result, Representative Lee Jong-hai became a global star regardless of her own wishes. However, this video caused serious controversy to just laugh at. By the way, was porn illegal in Korea? All my Korean friends seem to see it. That's weird. Isn't Korea a country with freedom of expression? All girl groups emphasize sex appeal. I like Korean movies, so I watch them often, but they are very cruel. Stabbed to death with a knife or cut through the body with a saw. Blood just splattered. Is it okay to show you killing people but not to show them having sex? Right. You can slap me in the face, break bones, cut off the neck and split the stomach, but the penis is not allowed. Huh. What the hell is this? Are you kidding me? No. Really. If such a scene appears in a foreign movie, mosaic it or delete it when importing. I don't understand. So, what are all the pornography on Korean web hard? What is it? All illegal files. Then why don't you pay the company that made the porn? Stealing copyrighted works is also theft. I don't understand. Korea is a cultural powerhouse that exports K-pop, dramas and movies to the world. But why are you ignoring the intellectual property rights of other countries? In that case, there is no difference between Korea and China, right? Just because porn is legal in a country doesn't mean there are no illegal files. However, when there is a market that can be accessed legally, some illegal files are circulating and the whole market is made up of illegal files is a completely different matter. All works are copyrighted and so is pornography. However, pornography is illegal in Korea in the first place. The Korean court did not recognize the copyright of pornography because it cannot recognize the copyright of illegally defined content. Foreign pornographic companies have long been aware that Korea is consuming all pornographic content illegally. I just knew it, but I was ignoring it. However, it was difficult to remain still as this incident became a public debate around the world. First, American pornographic producers gathered and formally protested to the Korean government. European and Japanese pornographic companies followed suit. Some expressed their intention to proceed with litigation by contracting with an international law firm. Facet applied for copyright registration in Korea for its own content, and the Korean government was in a difficult situation. If you accept the copyright registration, you are recognizing the rights of illegal content, and if you do not accept it, you will continue to ignore the intellectual property rights of the United States. The United States is already sensitive to intellectual property rights issues due to the trade dispute with China. The New York Times published an editorial by famous cultural critic Ferdinand Cave. How big is the Korean porn industry? The answer is 0. Isn't that surprising? How the hell could this be? The reason is that pornography is illegal in Korea. Because of this, you cannot make it or sell it for money. So, is it that no Koreans watch porn? Syncopation. South Korea claims that China indiscriminately copies Korean products and contents and infringes intellectual property rights. In fact, there are several lawsuits filed by companies in this regard. However, Korea does not recognize the copyright of foreign pornography and is only consuming it illegally. While the copyright holders made less than $1, web hard companies and heavy uploaders took huge profits. Interestingly, if you are caught while distributing pornography on the internet, you will only be punished for distributing pornography, not for violating the Copyright Act. Korea exports not only K-pop but also dramas, movies, and broadcasts. The Hallyu wave is expanding into the world and has established itself as an important industry in Korea. In the case of famous idol groups, the profits they make in foreign countries are much higher than in Korea. But when it comes to porn, they completely ignore the copyrights of other countries. Finally, I introduce a Korean proverb. Asterisk romance if I do it, affair if someone else does it. What is the biggest reason why there has been no discussion about legalizing pornography in Korea? That's because even though it was illegal, there was no problem in viewing. However, there are two big problems with this. One is that it is absolutely illegal, and the other is that no matter how much foreign pornography there is always a demand for native pornography. There is no pornography production company in Korea, but there are plenty of videos circulated under the name of domestic porn or Korean porn. Many of them are illegally filmed, and even if they were filmed with consent, the distribution was mostly done without the consent of the person concerned. Among them, there was also revenge pornography that was intentionally distributed with a malicious mind toward the ex-lover. These illegal videos were distributed indiscriminately through web hard. Strict regulations on pornography have made it illegal. In particular, there were no words to say about intellectual property infringement. Now, the Korean porn issue showed signs of spreading into trade frictions with the US, EU, and Japan. And the Chinese production companies which are litigating for copying Korean entertainment programs showed the attitude, "You are also ignoring other countries' intellectual property rights, and why are you shouting at us?" As the situation grew out of control, President Ha Chong-min said at a ministerial meeting, "I think Korea now needs to revise regulations related to adult material in line with international standards. To this end, it is urgent for the ruling and opposition parties to cooperate to create a discussion body." The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade, Industry and Energy, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Ministry of Strategy and Finance supported the president's words, but only Minister Shin Min-mi of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family opposed it to the end. There is a risk that premature deregulation will increase digital sex crimes, exacerbate women's human rights, and promote sexual commodification. However, in a poll conducted by a research firm, more than 70% of the respondents said that the current porn regulations should be revised. The approval rate of those in their 20s and 30s was higher than those in their 40s and 50s, and more than half of women agreed. 82% of the respondents expressed a negative opinion on the bill to strengthen the crackdown and punishment on pornography proposed by Representative Lee Jong-hae. As public opinion worsened, some of the members of the National Assembly Aesionbai, who were named as co-sponsors, secretly removed their names. Representative Lee Jong-hae was outraged, but she couldn't keep pushing forward with the bill as the United States fell over intellectual property issues. In the end, Assemblyman Nam Gwi took the lead, and a discussion body was created to discuss the deregulation of pornography in the National Assembly. Not only lawmakers from the opposition parties, but also experts from all walks of life and civic groups were expected to participate. Read more at wuxiax.com. Representative Nam Gui did it. No, this was done by Representative Lee Jong-hae. So was this all a big picture for legalizing porn? Otherwise, it cannot be explained why such a law was proposed. We didn't know the dark night. I'm sorry for swearing all this time. Rep. Lee Jong-hae is the pioneer of Korean pornography and the hope of the Liberal People's Party. Senator Jen Se. Do not resign. I had a video call with Toby, CEO of Face It with Taekyu. If the law is revised, we plan to officially service it in Korea. We plan to add Korean subtitles to existing videos and contract with local companies to produce Korean content. Korean law adopts a common sense. Let's assume that Korean A goes to the US and makes a formal contract with a production company to film porn. There is nothing wrong with US law. However, Korean law applies to A, who is a Korean, and he is punished for making pornography, production of pornography. Previously, it was impossible to produce Korean pornography, but that will change when the law changes. Erotic film producers expressed great anticipation for the revision of the law. Toby said with a laugh. It all started because of that petition. I heard that it had more than 2 million signatures. Did the person who filed the petition know that it would turn out like this? Taekyu nodded his head at that. Of course. I felt it from the moment I uploaded it. Haha, that's right. Huh. There was silence for a moment. I asked, turning his head to the side. What did you just say? Then Taekyu secretly avoided my gaze. I screamed out of disbelief. Oh, Taekyu, get down. It feels like the new year started yesterday, but the calendar has moved to December. I boarded a plane with Taekyu and headed to Norway. The reason I go to a place where no one knows me is because there is a Nobel Prize ceremony. For the same reason, Professor Haman Kim also went to Sweden. When the Nobel Prize was created, Norway belonged to Sweden. In 1905, Norway became independent and took only the right to award the Nobel Peace Prize. So, while other Nobel Prize awards are held in Stockholm, Sweden, only the Nobel Peace Prize is held in Oslo, Norway. How are you living in Norway? Huh. The per capita income is about $80,000. Dean was surprised. $80,000? What's so high? Korea is now barely over 000, so it's more than twice as high. Well, the population is 10 times different, so Korea's overall GDP is overwhelmingly high. Is there anything famous in Norway other than salmon? I wonder if I could have made that much money by selling salmon. It's all about oil. In addition to tourism, manufacturing, and fishing, there are also export of resources, which occupies an overwhelming position. If there were no North Sea oil fields, we would not be able to enjoy the wealth we have today. Is it cold in Norway? Perhaps. Because it is higher in latitude than Korea. But it's too cold in Korea. Right. Summer is insanely hot and winter is insanely cold. Feels like the weather is just like summer and winter. Is this all because of global warming? In winter, I have to go to a warm country to play. Would you like to go on a trip you haven't been to before? Guam or Hawaii? Taekyu looked out the plane window and turned his head towards me. By the way, are you really getting a Nobel Prize? I hope you don't give me a call. I never thought I would get a Nobel Prize in my life. I thought it was like that when I was selected as the winner, but now that I am going to Norway like this, I feel a little more real. Alfred Nobel, as we all know, was the entrepreneur who invented dynamite. And he made a lot of money selling it. However, the explosives he made were far more likely to be used on the battlefield than for construction purposes. Feeling very sorry for that fact, Nobel left a will to create a foundation based on his legacy to create a Nobel Prize. Thanks to this, he left his name as a person who contributed to the peace and development of mankind instead of the stigma of being a merchant of death, and his homeland was honored with the most prestigious award in the world. Had he not made the Nobel Prize, his legacy would have been shredded by his relatives, and Nobel would have remained one of those ordinary businessmen. Perhaps it has now been forgotten in everyone's memory. In this respect, how you spend your money is just as important as how you make money. Shall I build something like Rockefeller Center or Carnegie Hall? But can I take this by myself? It's a joint prime minister with President Ronald and Professor Mohan. No, you are. It's because he doesn't like being known. But Taekyu is the same as he tried to save people. He also deposited all his shares with me. However, I feel a bit sorry for receiving it alone. Taekyu patted my shoulder and said, with something like that, isn't our friendship more important than the Nobel Prize? That's too cool a line for this kid to say. Taekyu folded his arms. It reminds me of the Nobel Prize, but before I die, should I make something like an OTK award? Huh. OTK award. It is awarded across games, anime, manga, and novels. OTK Game Award, OTK Anime Award. Can I give you $1 million in prize money? I think it would be good if it became the most prestigious award in the subculture. Really? There's nothing you can't do. Then won't my name go down in the history of subculture like Nobel? I guess I'll just be called an otaku-san. The plane landed at Oslo Gardermoen Airport. The ex-cop security guards arrived before us and had finished preparing the security. There was already a large crowd in front of the airport. We got into the waiting car. As we entered the city center, we saw protesters holding up signs everywhere. There was also a sign on the sign that read "Fossil Fuel Removal" in English. After the oil spill, Norwegian environmental groups unanimously demanded that the North Sea oil field be closed and completely converted to eco-friendly energy. Among the cars on the street there were many electric cars. Norway has announced a plan to ban the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles within 5 years, and has given various preferential treatment to the spread of electric vehicles. As a result, the sales rate of electric vehicles among new cars exceeded 30%, which is the highest in the world. Therefore, it can be said that it is a very important market for Karas. The problem is that as the number of electric vehicles increases, more power is required. This was a controversial topic in Norway as well. More thermal power plants should be built, nuclear power plants should be built, eco-friendly power generation should be increased, etc. Thermal power generation inevitably emits pollutants. Nuclear power generation is cheap and emits less pollutants, but radioactive waste disposal is a problem. Not to mention accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima. The best thing is green energy. Strictly speaking, there is no such thing as a completely green energy. Generally, wind power, hydropower, solar power, and geothermal power are regarded as eco-friendly energy. However, the wind makes a huge noise and many birds are killed by hitting the blades. Solar heat and sunlight cannot be used on a flowing day, and the energy production per unit area is low, so a large area is required. Hydropower changes the ecosystem of the river as much as it blocks waterways and builds dams. Geothermal power has the risk of causing earthquakes by changing the flow of energy in the ground. Taeyong nodded his head. Environmental destruction is inevitable for humans to survive. It's just a matter of how little you do it. In the past, economic development took priority even if it pollutes the environment. However, environmental pollution has now reached a serious level and has taken hold of the economy. The global temperature is rising year by year, and abnormal climate phenomena are becoming more frequent. In China, fine dust is so severe that it is difficult to walk without a mask. In order to breathe properly, factories near the city have to be shut down. We need to think about how we will grow in the future. Can technological advances solve this problem? We stayed at the Grand Paras Hotel, a famous American hotel chain. I roughly unpacked and spoke to Ellie. How about Norway? The city is beautiful. I wish I could have come with you. Hey, I wanted to go too. Ellie says she's never seen her come to Norway before when she was studying in London. It's because of work, so I can't help it. The end of the year is a busy time for financial institutions. There are a lot of beauties there. You can't look away. Is there a woman prettier than Ellie? Ellie laughed out loud at my words. That's a good attitude. After the call, I washed up and rested. President Ronald and Professor Mohan are due to arrive tomorrow. Around evening, a middle-aged man came to the hotel and visited me. He is in his mid-50s, tall and has a typical white skin tone. His name is Nicholas Carlson. The general public doesn't know, but he is a name that anyone in the financial world has heard of at least once. He is the managing director of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, GPFG. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund currently has $1 trillion in assets under management. This is more than double the amount of the Korean national pension. So when you think of Norway in the financial world, the first thing that comes to mind is the Sovereign Wealth Fund. The source of operating funds is the North Sea oil field. Countries that are suddenly blessed with resources tend to spend most of the time, or to be monopolized by some ruling classes. But Norway wasn't that stupid. Resources were managed transparently and fairly, and the members agreed to create a sovereign wealth fund to invest for the future. Crude oil is the largest raw material market and also the most distorted market. In a normal market, the price is naturally determined at the point where supply and demand coincide. However, in the meantime, the oil market has been supplier-centered and dominated by OPEC's collusion. Collusion disrupts the normal functioning of the market. The world had to go through 2 oil shocks as OPEC member countries arbitrarily adjusted supply and skyrocketed prices. This was possible because oil is the grain of wheat in modern civilization. No civilization could survive without oil, so we had to cry and eat mustard no matter how expensive it was. Although the North Sea oil producers did not belong to OPEC, they have enjoyed the benefits of collusion among OPEC members. Wouldn't it be good if oil prices go up no matter what anyone does? The reason why the OPEC cartel, which seemed to last forever, started to crack is because a huge supplier appeared outside the cartel. The United States developed a technology to crush shale rock and extract oil and gas from it, and secured profitability. The United States changed from being the world's largest oil importer to an exporter, and the OPEC member states were hit hard. Venezuela collapsed, and Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates suffered a significant decline in exports. Although we have prepared well before, Brent oil exporting countries such as the UK, the Netherlands and Norway are also suffering from the drop in oil prices. In particular, the damage to oil fields and oil spills will be quite devastating. Currently, the North Sea oil field is in the process of being restored to a state of shutdown. Winter is a time when oil demand increases due to seasonal factors. While the North Sea oil field was shut down, Middle Eastern countries were excitedly selling Dubai oil, contributing to oil price stabilization. Although monetary loss is also a loss, environmental damage caused by oil spills is a more serious problem. Among the countries in the North Sea, Norway suffered the most. A black strip of oil covered the coast, and fishermen put all their efforts into disaster prevention. This is why environmental groups have come up with it. General Manager Carlson greeted in British English. Read more at wuxiax.com. It is very nice to meet CEO Kong Jin-Hu. I always wanted to see you too. How many funds manage $1 trillion in assets? We are investing in about 10,000 companies in about 80 countries, so it was good to say that we are actually investing in the world. It also invests in domestic stocks and bonds, and is a major shareholder of large domestic companies including Samsung Electronics. We drank coffee and talked. After a brief greeting, he brought up the main topic. I would like to make 2 proposals to the representative. What? The first proposal is to invest in OTK company. As you may know, Norway has one important principle when it comes to managing sovereign wealth funds. I nodded and answered. Investing in assets that have little correlation with oil prices. Yes. A country that feeds on a specific resource is good when the resource price rises, but suffers a huge loss when the resource price falls. That is why we have this principle to spread the risk of falling oil prices. Companies owned by OTK company have little correlation with oil prices. In particular, as the main focus of Keris is electric vehicles, it can be said to be the opposite. Norway has invested heavily in electric vehicle-related companies as much as it has put its efforts into distributing electric vehicles. Nikola, BID, CLChem, etc. But the problem is that the stock prices of those companies are not very good these days. If the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund says it will invest, most companies will welcome it with open arms, but I am different. It's because we don't need additional investment right now. General Manager Carlson nodded his head as if he knew it. I would like to continue talking about that in the future. Secondly, I would like to ask for advice on the management of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I was startled inside. Investment proposals for OTK company were expected to some extent. However, the proposal to take on the role of management advisor was unexpected. The capital market is strictly one vote. So, having a lot of money is always an advantage. And it doesn't really matter if the money is mine or someone else's. The stake value is large, but in terms of cash that can be used, it is not much. If I accept the offer, my influence in the financial world will increase. Since it is not a personal asset, it is the money of the Norwegian people, so my investment will not be decided immediately. However, it was clear that it would be an important guideline. Because I have never failed an investment before. If you can manage sovereign wealth funds as you wish, where should you invest? General Carlson looked at my face and said, we will match the conditions and treatment as much as possible. I, who once dreamed of getting a job in the financial sector, will be asked to act as a management advisor for a sovereign wealth fund. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund invests in companies around the world. However, since it is impossible to know the local circumstances in detail, they usually sign a contract with a manager or establish a subsidiary. There is such a management company in Korea as well, and it is one of the enviable workplaces in the financial sector. General Carlson continued. As you know, sovereign wealth funds are gradually increasing their share of stocks. All financial products have a direct proportion of return and risk. Even if it seems like otherwise, it is a temporary phenomenon to the extent that it is supposed to return to the average again by the market function. Stocks are high return but also high risk. For this reason, funds that value stability limit their share of stock holdings. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, on the other hand, was planning to increase its shareholding to 70%. This is because oil prices and stocks often show opposite movements, and there is a belief that even if there is a temporary loss in the long term, it will move upward. This is possible because the decision-making process is transparent and social trust is at the bottom. Even if there is a loss, if it is reasonably decided according to the procedure, it will not be held responsible. In this respect, there is a big difference from the Korean National Pension Service, which devotes itself to its annual earnings. In the case of Korea, even if there is an immediate loss of valuation, the media is busy attacking the nation first, saying it has blown away the people's retirement funds. So, we have to be as conservative as possible. You may think that investing only in bonds and deposits, not stocks and real estate, is not a way to avoid losses. Even if the principle remains the same, if it does not keep pace with inflation and market returns, it is the same as losing money as a result. The arms are bent inward, and as long as I do investment in business, I may be advising to my advantage. Lawyers have the duty to avoid conflicts of interest, to avoid pleadings in which the client's interests conflict. The same goes for investors. So in the case of a private equity fund or hedge fund, the manager puts his or her money first. If there is a loss, it will bear with the investors. Fine. It is up to us to decide what kind of intentions we intended to give advice. If it's really good info, I'll be the first to move. If you just see it and then move along, you'll be able to get a decent amount of profit. How much are you going to pay as an advisory fee? If not, it will be tens of millions of dollars and you will be paid separately for success, right? Yeah, it doesn't mean much to me. You're not going to get rich with that money. It would be okay to put one more line on the business card saying that you are an outside advisor to the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, but General Manager Carlson said persuasively, if it is difficult to advise on investment, I would like to ask you about oil prices. I was perplexed by those words. Do you think I have the power to do that? Did you not predict correctly this time? Until Hurricane Red K swept the North Sea, most experts predicted a decline in oil prices. However, Red K made the North Sea oil field devastating and oil prices soared. And while everyone shed tears at a big loss, OTK company made a lot of money. I said calmly. In any case, I was lucky. Did I know that the North Sea oil field was going to be shut down due to damage? Even if you are talented, you have to be lucky to survive. I shrugged. Aren't there not one or two experts in that area? As the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund was created from the export proceeds of Brent oil, the most important of all economic indicators is oil price. Even now, geniuses from all over Europe will gather and predict oil prices with their own formulas and financial engineering. However, it is difficult to predict the oil market as there are so many variables. Facility operation, Middle East situation, production cut agreement, climate, new oil fields, development of refining technology, investor sentiment, etc. Since oil prices have a great impact on the real economy as well as finance, there are only a few things that can be done by accurately predicting future trends. I think CO Kong Jin, whose feelings are more accurate than the calculations of 100 such experts. Would they be sad if they heard it? General Carlson smiled bitterly. They will agree with me. So do I. This is the beauty of investing. Whether it is calculated and analyzed by a supercomputer or taken roughly, you just have to guess it. Just like the stocks that the monkeys picked out were better than the stocks that fund managers chose to put their heads together. Come to think of it, this guy was also a financial engineer, right? In any case, unless foreknowledge is seen, I too cannot know how oil prices will move in the future. Let's think about it. Okay. He didn't seem to be very disappointed, as he didn't think he would accept it right away anyway. General Manager Carlson ordered an additional coffee. This time the U.S. has moved its embassy to Jerusalem. I saw it on the news. Usually the embassy is located in the capital of the country. However, the U.S. Embassy in Israel has been in Tel Aviv, not Jerusalem. Now we are moving it to Jerusalem. The influence of Jews in America is huge. Although the proportion of the population is only 2%, they control and operate finance, politics, industry, and the media. U.S. presidential candidates have promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem to win support from the Jews, but none have done so. As we all know, Jerusalem is a holy city for Judaism and Christianity as well as for Islam. For this reason, after Israel occupied Jerusalem, Arab countries strongly opposed it. Ronald was also elected on the same promise, but the prevailing expectation was that it would not be possible to move the embassy because it would be the same as recognizing Israel's dominion in Jerusalem. I thought it was going to get messy because I was taking care of Big One, but this time I finally made it. Unlike previous presidents, Ronald boasted about keeping his promises, but the situation is very different then and now. So far, the most important goal of the U.S. Middle East strategy has been to secure oil. However, shale oil has made self-sufficiency possible. This meant that the United States no longer had to look out for Arab countries. The shale revolution also changed the international situation. In essence, economics and politics always move together. Isn't it highly likely that neighboring countries will protest? I do not know. I don't think anything will happen right now. Why do you think so? Hey, what? Although it temporarily rebounded due to the damage of the North Sea oil field, most of the Middle East countries are self-sufficient due to the continuous drop in oil prices, internal conflicts, and power struggles after the financial crisis. There will be opposition, but the likelihood of a direct armed conflict is extremely low. That's right. This is a fact that can be easily understood just by looking at the news. I'm not a Middle Eastern expert. However, General Manager Carlson nodded his head eagerly as if hearing it for the first time and asked a question. It was a great time. I hope to have the opportunity to meet you again next time. I was happy too. His expression looked very satisfied. What the hell did you get from talking to me? I'm suddenly starting to worry about the return on the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. Professor Kiran Mohan arrived first and we greeted him in the hotel lobby. His assistant Carrie Cartwright was also there. She was delighted with her unexpected trip to Northern Europe. Please sign later. My schoolmates asked me to. Anyway, we've been through hard times together, can't we just do that? Professor Mohan smiled and hugged me lightly. How have you been? Of course. Although he is almost the same age as his grandfather, it is like reuniting with an old friend. It's nice to meet you here. Me too. Since they came to Norway, they each have their own schedule. Professor Mohan must attend an autograph session hosted by a publishing company and an invitational lecture at the university. Ronald has a summit meeting with the Prime Minister. The professor was right about the possibility that abnormal climate phenomena could occur due to changes in topography and geothermal heat caused by the Big One. You mean Hurricane Red K? In Norway, Professor Mohan's books were selling wildly. And experts agree with the claim, and are concerned about future abnormal climate events. I heard that he made a lot of money because of that. Yes. So I will live for the rice. Let's go together. Norway is a very prosperous country, so prices are beyond imagination. It's basic to break tens of thousands of won just by eating at McDonald's. Professor Mohan happily nodded his head. You get it from the richest man in the world, so I won't give up. Ronald, who was in Switzerland, did not arrive at the hotel until late at night. Professor Mohan said he was tired and went to bed early, and Taikyu and I drank bourbon together in Ronald's room and talked about what was going on. You don't like alcohol, do you? He toasts with cola or grape juice instead of wine at dinners. Ronald said with a smirk. I don't hate it, but there is no one to drink comfortably. Read more at wuxiax.com. Does this mean that we are people who can drink comfortably? Being able to drink like this with the President of the United States is a privilege if it is a privilege. Ronald looked very tired. Maybe because of my age, my physical strength is different. By the way, this image is never shown in front of the media. They usually show anger or shouting. It's not as easy as you think to be president. As president, he seems to be able to move the country at will, but in a democratic country, various checks are put in place. The separation of powers is not for nothing. After a few drinks, Ronald's face quickly turned red. What do you think moves the world? Yes. All of a sudden, it's such a big question. Can it be explained by one or two? Ronald smiled bitterly. It is. But in the world, there is such a thing as a huge stream of water that can be called the mainstream. It is very difficult to go against that flow. No matter how much you want to avoid it, what has to happen will happen. What does this mean? You and I looked at each other's faces. Ronald, who was about to say something more, shook his head violently. It looks like he's drunk. Better get up for tomorrow. Okay. December 10th. U.S. President Ronald Stamper, Professor Kiran Mohan and Kang Jin, who were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. If you think about it, it was a very unusual combination. One is the President of the United States, one is a professor at the California Institute of Technology, and the other is the richest man in the world. The three of them worked together to save the lives of millions of people in a global catastrophe. With the whole world watching, Ronald spoke solemnly and seriously. The big one is not over yet. We've all lost family and friends, and the recovery continues today. I think this award is given to all Americans, not me. I hope that the Nobel Peace Prize will be of some comfort to them. The people who had gathered there stood up in unison and applauded. Professor Haman Kim was also awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in Stockholm for his contribution to the development of his OTK battery. Korea was engulfed in a festive mood by winning 2 Nobel Prizes at the same time. In particular, the award in the field of science alone was a great achievement for the Korean scientific community. President Ha Chong-min sent a congratulatory message, and congratulations from the political and financial circles followed.